I am unashamed. What about you?
So Phyllis is in the back in the lair. Welcome, Phyllis. It's always good to have you.
Thanks.
And you've got your face paint on, which means that you went hunting today.
Oh, we did.
Right.
So you've been on a little run here. You've hunted how many days in a row?
Every day I'm off, I'm pretty much in the blind.
Have you been with us the last 3 days?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
What is your assessment of what's happened the last 3 days? Because I was there.
There are a lot of woodies.
A lot of woodies. Good. I like it.
Which are the best to eat, so we love that.
They're great. You come back and then we've turned it into some kind of feast. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
I love to eat them.
Dad deep fried some last night, and man, outstanding. I thought it was beef.
I do think that Saturday and today, when we were one short of the limit.
Yeah, Phyllis has confirmed kills now.
Phyllis, I mean, that's hard for a new person to hunt, and we only need one, and you said, it's mine. And then to have to stand up and shoot in front of everybody. So describe that.
It does not bother me because I don't have that kind of ego wrapped up into it. Like, I know that I'm new, and so I expect to shoot like a new person.
Are you sure you're kin to us? No, okay.
No.
I was trying to teach, or not teach, but talk to Phyllis, because I hunted yesterday, about duck hunting. The hardest thing to learn about, especially in a blind full of people that have hunted together for years, is the instinct, like to know where to look, what's about to happen. Because you know, ducks are they're patternized, but you know they'll surprise you sometimes. But you kind of know, so you got to look at other people in the blind. You got to see. It's like then you're ready. You know, it's hard to do it, and it all happens like that. I mean,
this commercial made this saying famous, but we've been saying this for 30 years. You have to stay in your lane. And it's an imaginary...
Stay in your lane, sis.
Lane. Because once you get too far, people are not happy.
Yeah, well, then you start shooting over people's heads and doing all the things. Then it gets into duck etiquette.
For the most part, I mean, unless I've messed up, I don't know. He hasn't said.
Well, pretty good.
I stay in my... I don't...
Stone is watching you and giving you pointers on any hiccups that you're having.
So it's basically just learned by trial by fire, I guess. Because I was hearing Phil today, he was telling you, like, once you shot, he said you shot too high or get over your head. And I was thinking, do I remember having this? And no.
And you'll notice after I shoot, I'm asking, where did I shoot? Where did I miss? So I want to know. I want the feedback, the critique, so I can take that and adjust what I'm doing so I do better the next time.
Well, you got a way better deal. You've got the mellow feel. When I was a kid, I think the first time I shot, I actually shot the decoys because they said, kill them, Jason. I couldn't see over the shooting port, so I had to stand up on a bucket. They had given me a 12-gauge Magnum Browning. I mean, I'm 8 years old.
That kicks like a mule.
Well, when I fired the first shot, they said, kill him. Well, I hadn't seen the decoys yet. So when I thought, well, there's 100 just sitting there. I think I'll shoot those.
You have to really begin to see the difference between the decoys and the ducks. And the first couple times I was out there, I'm thinking,
comment was,
hard to see.
What do you think I got him? He said, you got one duck and about 6 decoys and one shot. I said, yeah, that's good shooting there, man.
Well, what's funny is now, in the old days, decoys, you didn't want to shoot decoys because you had to buy them and all that. But, I mean, we probably hadn't bought a decoy in a long time. So it matters less to me.
Well, I will say this.
If one's in a decoy, I'm just shooting whatever's in there.
I will say this with 100% certainty. Every decoy that we had out today, which was probably 36, were shot. Because I had to put them way out.
And then stuff kept lighting in between, right?
Well, when you put them way out in front of you.
Yeah.
And this hole, we hunted it for years and we couldn't get them in there because they always tried to light this little pocket. So I had a thought, well, let's just put all the decoys in the pocket and maybe they'll come in between us. It worked.
And they did.
The problem with that is you go through all your decoys by the end of the season if you hunt there. Right. In fact, when we got there, Phil said decoys are way too far out. But, I mean, you remember now when we put them out there what happened. And, I mean, they bombed.
You put the decoys, with 99% of the people say you put them too far out. But the way that configuration of that hole is, and the wind today was blowing right at us.
Right at us.
Right at us. So they come around behind. But these suckers, came down out front and made their loop just a sharp cut and straight down.
Right in front of you.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking a few mallards, a few gadwall, and a lot of woodies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, we eat wood ducks.
Oh, they're
A lot.
delicious.
And it's one of the best there is. You tenderize them, soak them in buttermilk overnight.
Yep, do a little
Let 'em
brine
sit
on
there,
'em.
pour the buttermilk off, make you an egg wash, salt, black pepper them good, both sides, roll them around a little bit. They're wet from buttermilk.
They're good. We're eating a lot of ducks.
And you whip 4 or 5 eggs and just work that in right quick. And so it's really a batter. I mean,
It
a
tasted.
large
It was
batter.
like a super delicious round steak. No gaminess. I mean, they were.
You have to
feel
tenderize them. It
tender.
looks about like that. It's about that size.
What are we doing?
You go over all the breasts like that.
It's like a meat
he's-
tenderizer.
He's,
How was
he's
it?
tenderized.
I'm giving you
I blacked
the
out for a second.
sound effects.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
Well, normally people have to pay extra for that, but on Unashamed,
It's a
Dad,
certain kind you have to have. It's about this big around, like a cup, about big as that cup. And it has needles, look like, coming out of it.
yeah, it's
And
stone.
when you
found
push
that.
down, those needles come forth. And you cut the little sinews here, there, and that's why you ate them. You be thinking it was a
thought it was
high
beef.
grade of beef.
I'll
thought it
have
was
to
beef.
confess, the first time I got it, I couldn't figure it out. And I was, and I mean,
You tenderized your
my
own hand.
index finger, and it was my
They're
trigger
sharp.
finger.
You were certain how it worked. At
I
that
thought,
point.
I get it. All right, it's the Christmas season.
Well, Jay's first show your shirt to camera. This is one
This
of our
is,
new shirts. We've been talking about our new merchandise on Blaze, and so these are some new shirts that have been inspired by our show. We've got some shirts we'll be wearing. I love this one because it says "Love always protects."
But
1 Corinthians 13:7, and then it's got an AR there.
isn't this trademark by the Holy Spirit?
Well, it is, except for
Well, you
the,
should put trademark Holy Spirit at the bottom.
Yeah, that'd be good. I
Make
like
that change. Look, all of them. Look, write that down. Okay, it's just a thought. So I guarantee you somebody be selling trademark Holy Spirits. All right, it's the Christmas season. This is supposed to be our Christmas special, right?
This is episode 200. I know you love numbers; they mean so much to you.
So-
this is our 200th episode, and it's our Christmas episode.
I have some. This is going to be exciting news for some of you, and this depressing news for some of you. But last night, I got into an argument with my wife and my in-laws, playfully. That's what we do at this stage, and it was over Christmas.
Playful argument. Do you have a
And
lot
so-
of playful arguments, Dad?
Well, my wife and I, we like doing that, and so it all started when Karina, my adopted daughter from Nicaragua, she came in and said, "Sir," she calls, I said, "You don't have to call me sir," because she's 21 now,
Yeah.
but she's like, "Excuse me, sir, is Christmas December the 25th?" Well, I bust out laughing. I was like, yeah. She said, "Oh, thank you." I was like, "Well, is it not December 25th in Nicaragua?" She's like, "No, it's the 24th. I said, "Well, that didn't make any sense." And she said, "Well, why not, sir?" I said, "Well, that birth pains. Birth pains." I said, "What I saw from this woman," I pointed at Missy, "I never should have done this because then it just,
Escalated.
I said, "That's nothing you want to celebrate in that moment." Now, once the baby came out, oh, everybody's happy, I was like, so your Nicaragua needs to move that up, So I was kind of joking, but so the next thing you know, because I said, well, while I'm at it, I started going through the annoyances of Christmas. I don't know how to say it, the struggles, the annoyances. Now these are light issues. We'll get to what really matters, but everybody will spit that out. If you say, what's special about Christmas? You're like family, food, Jesus. Jesus, family, right? But we say that so much. So I went into the details, and I came up with the good, bad, and the ugly. And here's what's weird about this. The 10 things that I consider the ugly or the struggles, these are 10 things that my wife loves. That's where the argument came. All right? Are you with me? All right. So I'll give them, and y'all just tell me if I'm off or if you have any comments.
It'll be interesting to see how I feel about what you think versus what your wife, another girl, thinks.
We're going for it.
Well, you're off.
these are-
Before we even start, I can tell you that.
No, I don't
Just
think
because
so.
you're a half a bubble off on everything.
I think on most of these things, you're going to rally with me.
All right, we'll see.
Number 10, which will go, area of importance, recipe changes. You say, what? These are top 10 annoyances, recipe changes. What happens is when the in-laws come, my wife she doesn't use the spice because she doesn't want them to like go, oh, this is too hot. So all the food that we normally eat, it's the same, but has no spice. Okay, just if you have no comment, fine.
She's accommodating.
She's accommodating.
So you're bad.
I understand her being accommodating. I understand why it's frustrating, but do we care more about the family coming or our own taste buds?
That's what she said. And look, I'm not saying these are deal breakers. These are playful annoyances, all right? Next, not noticing decorations. This happened last night. I said, oh, the tree. You put up the tree. She said, I did that yesterday. And goes off. How can you be in this house for over 24 hours and not notice? Well, I got to looking around. The whole thing had turned into a winter wonderland.
And you had somehow missed it.
I never noticed that. Okay, are you with me or no?
Well, I would have noticed.
So the way they wanted you to handle it was appreciate the decorations.
Yes.
24
She said,
hours
I was wondering how long you were going to sit there without acknowledging the hard work. I said, you didn't have to do it. Shouldn't have said that.
I've never entered any structure since I've been on the earth and checked out the decor. I just never have done it.
Well, you'll like this. She said, you're just like your dad. You don't
Is that what he
notice.
said?
She said
Oh.
that. Okay. All right, next on the
I'll take
list.
the blame. It doesn't bother me.
Next on the list.
That is Phil-esque.
Now, I've got to, be careful with this because it is a good movie. But every year, we have to watch The Sound of Music. That's why her parents were there last night. We all go in there. I've never watched it, really, until last night because she made such a big deal about it. I was tired.
The Sound of Music.
Well, listen, now this has a backstory. When I asked my wife to marry me, she said, I got two conditions. It was not like, yes, I'll marry you. She said, there's two things.
You mean your marriage and your tying the knot, it hinges on this particular...
When I said, I said, will you marry me? She said, two things. She said, I want my kids, if the Lord blesses us with kids, to go to a Christian school. I said, okay. She said, number two.
She said, so far, so good.
She said, you have to sit down and watch The Sound of Music with me.
You have
And
to
I
sit
thought-
down.
One time or every single
I'm
year?
just telling
Well-
you what she said. I didn't know the tradition in her family is they watch that every year. Look, first, let me say this. This movie's 4 hours long, and it's a musical.
Have you seen it?
Nope.
So look,
Never heard of
now
it.
look.
I've
so,
heard of
So
it.
did I watch The Sound of Music? I'm like, if you want me to watch this movie to marry you, go get it. Let's go to Blockbuster back then, So I did, and I thought, okay, the story's pretty good, but I get so bored with all the singing. And now I got to be careful in saying that because, look, last night, here we are. We've been married 30 years.
And her family is
They're
like
musical.
musical. All of them can sing. And,
Ow.
Right.
They all cried last night. I ain't talking about
because
tears.
you watched the movie?
No, they cry every time they watch
every
the
time they
movie.
watch it.
Every time they watch the movie, they cry. They sing. Like when the songs come on, they all sing.
So the effect of it is sadness.
Well, I think they're.
Is it Tears of Joy?
It's a great
It's a
movie,
great
a
movie.
great musical, but I
It
could
is.
not watch it over and over and over again. So it is a beautiful story. If someone hasn't seen it, I wouldn't want to give away the end.
It was like the 60s, right? When
If you hadn't seen that,
Julie Andrews, I mean, she's
well,
brilliant.
y'all hadn't seen it.
I
I haven't seen it.
For last night's the first time I watched it, but I did like blank out over. I'd say half of it. Well, they're singing these little cuckoo songs, cuckoo, and they're all singing it.
But they're children.
I'm just scared somebody's
The
going to walk
cuckoos,
in
they're
and
they're
see
children.
me sitting there doing this.
I wouldn't have
Or
done
somebody
this.
might film it. Hang on, let's take a break.
All right, look,
We did a production of that in Nicaragua, by the way. The school put on a production of The Sound of Music, and it was really good. I was a nun. I was one of the singing nuns.
Well, the line of the movie is at the end, the Germans are after this family or whatever. I hope I ruined the movie for everybody. And their vehicles wouldn't crank, and they were trying to go. And this movie was made in like what, 1920?
That was like
40
the
something.
60s or something.
It's
50s or
old.
60s, yeah.
And the two nuns are standing there, and they said, "Bless me, sister, for I have sinned." And
what?
they said, "Bless me, sister, for I have sinned." The nuns say this. And he's like, she looked like what? And they came out with, and I'd never seen such a spark plug. It was like a spark plug that was like this big, wires hanging off of. They had taken the spark plugs out of the German vehicles. So the Austrians could
Escape.
go up the mountain and sing
More songs.
cuckoo.
See, that's the difference. In my family, Jace, we watch Christmas Vacation. That's our
Well,
traditional.
we'll watch that on Christmas Day, but we have the Sound of Music thing going.
Yeah.
And
And
if
that
she
goes
ever
with-
listens to this, this could be a deal breaker for us moving forward.
Well, you've already been married 30 years, so I think
Okay.
you're good.
All right. So next, in-law gifts. This was weird for me to bring up last night with my in-laws there, but I just had to do it. I went through, broke the fifth wall, or whatever they call it. And because one time, and here's what I mean, this is annoyance. One time, one of her
I didn't know there was
in-laws,
5 walls.
look, one of her in-laws gave me a picture of herself. It was like a portrait. Now, I didn't know her very well. It was like 1970s frame, but I'm like, I got nothing. You know what I'm saying? Okay, maybe you got a bit. It was annoying to me. All right, next.
So you had no response. Did you say, "Oh, this is a"?
I was so shocked when I opened it. So listen what I did.
spitting image.
I wrote this down because here's what she got mad about. I'm gonna go ahead and confess my sins. So what I did
Like the
is
nun here.
she takes me to this. Some of her friends. We did this last year or a couple years ago. We go to some of her friends and they call it a white elephant regifting party. I didn't want to go, but it's Christmas, and these are some of the annoying things you have to do. Well, I took that picture. That was my gift. So they opened it
Bad
up,
move.
and it's just an old lady.
Bad move.
I thought it was hilarious. No, that didn't go well.
I bet nobody stole that one. Whoever opened that went home with it.
I thought the object of the game was to be humorous.
It is, I think. That's what the times
How-
I've done it.
It wasn't funny. All right,
It would have been funny to me.
Here's another
I'm with
one.
you on that one.
another one annoying, explaining to your kids that I'm Santa. Right? Phil, you didn't do this. There comes a time, I mean, here's what I did, and this is the backstory of this. My son Cole, at 4 years old, comes in, and he's like, "Dad, who is Santa really?" Or something like that. I
Cole's a
said-
thinker, too, so I
Yeah.
could see him.
He's 4 years old.
He's starting early.
I said, "Cole, I'm Santa. The gifts are coming from me. But if you ever tell your mom that I told you, I'm going to whip your butt." So look, here's the funny part. Every year, the only person that thinks that they're playing the Santa game is Missy. All my kids, I've already told them all. I'm Santa.
is
There's
so
no
sad.
Santa.
So sad.
I think they're old enough
Poor
now to where
Missy.
they get it.
Well, they get
Well,
it
now they're adults.
Well, the problem was when Cole was about 12 or 13, and in a moment of stupidity, he tells his mom that I told him when he was 4
Ooh.
that I was Santa. I'm in there doing
ratted
whatever.
you out.
She come in there and said, "Cole just told me one of the strangest things I've ever heard." Well, what am I going to do, lie? I said, "Yeah, I told him. I'm not going to be superstitious about that kind of stuff. I believe in God Almighty, That didn't work. So, all right, I have two more of the annoyances. Now, this one is a little more cultural. Merry Christmas. I'm annoyed when people are annoyed that you tell them Merry Christmas. This is the only annoyance she agreed with me on.
Was the Merry Christmas.
because you're in the Christmas spirit, but people in our culture now are offended because you got Christ in the Christmas.
It's kind of become a political line.
Yeah.
Because you can say happy holidays. So every time somebody says that to me, I always respond with Merry Christmas.
I do too.
It's just a reaction. But
Then
most people say it back.
I put this down to be positive because I didn't want you to think I was negative. The number one annoyance is when it's over.
Having to take it all down.
It's annoying when it's over.
Well, because that's my segue into the positives.
Right.
You know, as annoying
you're
as
saying
those
you love-
things are, I do love.
Dealing with your in-laws when the party's over. I would think that's not an annoyance. That's a yay moment.
Yeah. I left off one. I skipped it, and this is a biggie. So I would put this number one besides the Merry Christmas. Stockings.
Stockings.
You know how they hang the stockings up? Look, my wife has done this for 25 years. She puts stockings up with, I had to look the word up because I didn't know what it was, garland. It's green, leafy like brush.
Like a
With-
duck blind.
with lights.
Brush.
Okay.
He sees brush.
Now you say, where am I going with this? Okay, here's the deal. When she puts this up, you cannot see the score of the game
Oh, she blocks the bottom of the TV?
of any football game. You can't see the ticker.
Not okay.
You try to look up their stocks, can't see the ticker.
I'm with you on this one too.
So I'm like, can we get this down a little so I can see what the score is? How much time's left? I have to send a kid, now that my kids are grown, I can't do it. I send them up there and say, how many timeouts we got left?
That's right.
We have this argument every year. And I'm sitting there doing this.
Misplaced
and the channel,
garland.
I love stockings, but nothing should block the TV.
Thank you. Will you talk to Missy about this?
I will.
Because it is, I just want to rip it down because the fireplace is right under it. And I'm looking at the fire, I'm looking at the garland because it's so dry. Don't.
You could just throw it.
And then what I thought about saying was, that thing must have fell right next to that fire. We could have burned the house down. Fortunately, that was the only thing that burned up. All right, so here's the positives. Now, I'm going to quickly go through these because I think you all agree. I put dominoes because when I was a kid, I used to love all my family coming in because that was more competition for dominoes.
And so Phyllis to know, because you're new to the family. This is your first Christmas with all of us. So in the old days, Granny and Paul lived right next door. So Christmas, more than anything, but also sometimes Thanksgiving, all the cousins and, my uncles and aunts would come and stay. Just, so it was fun. It was just like a week of dominoes, card games, us playing football in the yard. I mean, a lot of our early really good memories around the holidays were because of that, I think.
Yeah.
Because it was like 15 years.
Of course, then I put homemade food, which is obvious for us, but I think a lot of people, that's about the only time they cook is during the holidays.
Yeah.
So, that stands out as a subtlety that, because if you have bad food, guess what? No matter what you're celebrating or trying to do.
And we have pretty much traditional food, except we fry our turkeys on Thanksgiving. So we do like a Cajun type Christmas meal.
I'm looking forward to that.
Oh,
We always had a traditional meal, but I grew up around 45 minutes from here, and my grandma made, cornbread dressing. I didn't know what stovetop stuffing was until I went to Iowa with my husband, and his grandma broke out this box, and I was like, what's that? And she said stuffing, and I'm still like looking at it, and I'm like, oh, I think this is a substitute for cornbread dressing, and it's not.
But it's not really a substitute.
Well, I did learn, Phil and Kay, taught me this. If you want to guarantee good food for every occasion, do it yourself.
Yeah. Learn it and do it. Let's take another break, Jay.
I made a power play about 3 years into our marriage. I just went for it because they always like to eat out on Sundays. And I said, look, how about we go to our house, and I'll cook us a meal. And that led to, how about we have the holiday celebration, whatever it is, here, and we'll cook. What I noticed, the reason it sold, because some people don't like to cook.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exhausting, which it is. I mean, I've seen y'all peel, 12 pounds of shrimp and
Oh, it's
But I would-
the prep work on a big feed is where all the work goes.
But you'd
at.
rather be exhausted and eat.
Practice hospitality without grumbling.
Yeah, good.
It's good, especially in your family.
Okay. Now, number 3, I have mistletoe. And there's a backstory here. When I was a kid, this is the story that I've never told anyone because I was a little embarrassed, but I did it. I realized that over here and to this day on our land, it is a mistletoe haven. Have you noticed all
Yep.
the mistletoe? Well,
yeah.
so I would go shoot it when I was a kid because at our school, they were real superstitious, not superstitious, traditional. Like when you turn somebody's ring, whatever, like when you graduate, you had to kiss the person who did it the 87th time or whatever the year was we were graduating at Pinecrest. I don't know if your class was like that.
Never heard. That must be after me. I never heard that one.
Well,
There was a lot of kissing, but it had nothing to do with
well,
rings.
my junior high, pre-junior high, we used mistletoe to try to kiss the prettiest girls. Well, I would sell it for anywhere from $1 to $5 a bag.
You wonder why Jace ended up like he is. He's running with that bunch of in-laws he's
I
got.
tell you what, he's a Christmas capitalist.
Boy,
I like.
he's been through a long desert march.
But it was something to me that was enjoyable because I could go hunt for the mistletoe, and then get paid for it, and
Well, I'd heard the story about Willie and the gum and candies,
Yeah.
but I'd never heard the mistletoe story.
it was legitimate mistletoe.
yeah.
I mean,
I didn't.
shot.
I've never seen it. I don't know if you'd ask me where do you find
I'll-
mistletoe.
Well, you will
I'll
show it
shoot
to
you some.
It's
I'll
up-
shoot you
I've
some.
never.
We'll go in the woods, and I'll say it's just a green ball in the top of trees. You it stands out.
Where does it grow besides here?
I don't know that, but we got a bunch of.
I don't know why they ended up making mistletoe such a big deal, but it goes way back.
Well, yeah, the tradition was you'd hang it up and then you know somebody stands under
Well,
it.
that's what we do. All the them guys they stick it up. You got to kiss, or you gonna be cursed for 12 years. Or,
Yeah.
I mean,
You
I
may
would
never
give
kiss
them
again.
the story. You know what I mean? You're never gonna get married if you don't do it. So, all right. I told you this was nonsensical. Now these are more positive. All right, caroling, because I've even, I think y'all have all had people come from our church. They're big carolers. And,
This year it's interesting, Jace, because of COVID, they're not. There's been a group that's been Christmas caroling for all the years we've been at WF. I mean,
they're not doing it.
30 years.
I figured they were just.
They're not doing it, but they're doing a virtual Wednesday night. They're going to Christmas carol. All the carolers are, and then they send it out, for everybody to watch it on their computers or whatever. So they are still doing it, but it's not, when they come to the front doors.
They invited people to come and listen at the church if you're around here.
Oh, they're awesome. They came to our house last year.
Well, a couple of years ago, or was it last year? We were at your house, and
Yeah, you were in that
the
group.
Daraja,
That's what it
the
was.
Daraja of African kids were in town, and they were caroling with them, and it was awesome. These kids can sing, and it
I've
was.
been a recipient more than I've been part of the. I actually, because Missy sings well, and I can hum a low bass note. But I just like that tradition.
I do.
I like the power of singing in malls and like these people who
Yeah.
just get radical with it and sing about Jesus in places where it's just
I saw last year there was a group, some community college, and so all their choir group, they were going to a Houston mall, and they were dressed in the old Victorian, with the big hats and the dresses, and they were just singing, going, Christmas songs going through the mall. It was amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
just watching it was fantastic.
Okay, and I only have 3 more on the positive. And I put magical because now Missy, when I read these to Missy last night after we had our 2-hour argument, because I said, no, there's some positives, and I gave her these. And she's like, well, most of those are just positives for you, But because I had duck season at the top. I omitted that because I think that's obvious. But
There was a question about whether or not we're duck hunting Christmas morning.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Look,
Jace Houston,
I would miss.
for years he missed when his kids were little.
I
But
can
listen
get
to
that
this.
little kid.
She said, this is weird. All my kids, I heard her say this to Karina. She's like, all the kids are not going to be here till the afternoon on Christmas. I said, well, bye. She said, what? I was like, well, I'll go hunting.
So for a
And
few years when
she
our
said,
kids were
"Fine."
little, it was mainly
That's
just dad.
3 that signed up: me, the daughter, and you.
Well, Karina said, well, can I come? I was
Stone
like,
was
sure.
hedgy.
We may bring,
Anna said she didn't care.
Joel
and
go,
Joel
right?
is going.
Joel.
let's bring Karina as a conscientious objector.
Bring her hunting.
Well, just to watch.
So she doesn't like it.
Well, I took her a couple times, but she's not ready for live action. I let her shoot a gun. I mean, I was very
Jason, the more I'm
safe.
listening to you this morning, the more I'm entertaining the thought that I am indeed mellowing to stay so quiet after hearing your rant on all of this.
I just thought
He's
look,
starting to lose it a little bit
You're
when you
in the
talked
vein.
about bringing another
You're
girl.
crossing bridges I never had to cross, Jason.
Phil, it's a lot easier in life just to say, nah. But I get in the game and try to
I
have
understand.
reasonable discussions about these things. I mean, it's frustrating when you watch a football game, you can't see the score.
Yeah.
And I mean, I go to look, the first 2 years, I'm going to be honest, I ripped that thing down through it.
Well, that's what would have been my move.
Well, I did that, and guess what? She just put it back up. Then she started getting all teary-eyed about believing in Christmas and it's a spirit.
You're the
and
Grinch.
You got to have the stockings on the mantle, and I was like, okay. So now I got to have my computer while I'm watching the game, just so I can see how many timeouts, the clock.
Jason.
So I'm literally doing this.
I know you act a little odd from time to time, but after hearing your story about your in-laws, where it started and where you are now, I would say you've done well, my son, to come out of there
Well, you got to
with
think
a
about
sound
this.
mind.
I love my wife's ability
Such as it is.
to sing. I love it that she sings, mostly about God. So I love it. But there is a byproduct that comes with it, which is we watch musical movies that I would never watch. I mean, she's like, come watch this movie with me. What am I going to say? No.
Your mother would never say to me, Phil, let's go watch a musical. Let's go turn on a musical. She wouldn't say that.
Do
to me.
yourself a favor. Watch The Sound of Music with Kay. Now, you need to have plenty of rest and sleep before you start it.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to stay awake
I
the
think
first
I
3
know
hours.
it may be difficult, but I believe I can get by on planet Earth without that movie. If you
It's a
understand
pretty
what I'm
good
saying.
movie if you can make it to the end.
Hang
Oh,
on,
yeah.
Jace. Let's take another break.
All right, so magical, and I don't mean Revelation 28 magical. I just mean I do like the idea of believing in imaginary things and, Santa Claus. And we had the little elf guy that moved around when our kids were real little. What do they call that?
Elf on the shelf.
Elf on the shelf. So you move it every night. They wake up and they're like, I forgot why it moves every night.
Well, it gets these different positions and all this stuff, and then that we're big into it with my grandkids. But there's 2 now, so there's a elf on the shelf, and then somebody came up with an Uncle Si elf and sold it.
Well, that's just
And
horrifying.
so now we've got Si and Pixie or whatever the other one's name is. So
Sigh
we
on
have
the
2
shelf.
of it at my house.
Okay. And then the last 2 are really serious. I mean, I wasn't being playful. Those are just all, I thought small subtleties. Grace giving. And I say that because every year, I know y'all do different things. We pick a family, and I mean, we give them a pretty big chunk of money. And it's not like we're just enabling or it's, I remember a couple times it was over, somebody was diagnosed with a disease and, it's close to us and we just, and I love doing that every year.
Yeah, us too.
for
We've got one of
Christmas.
my Lisa's nieces is they have 8 foster kids. They had 2 kids they raised, and they've adopted 8 kids out of 2 different families because she's a nurse at Charity Hospital. And just such givers, and so we know they've got all those kids, so we always give them
Yeah.
money, to be able
I mean,
to, stuff like that.
I think there's a lot of people giving to charities and all, and that's great. But I just think there's something special about finding a family and just because you think, well, you can't help them all. No, but I can tell you what, you can take one and really help them. And especially as people of character, and it's just sometimes life is hard and tough. And
they're in a tough situation.
We got it. Here it is. But even when we didn't have it, we still did it. It was just a very small amount.
Right.
Now it's much more substantial. And then the last positive is to find clever ways to share Jesus. And we've always, even when our kids were small, about reading the Jesus story in clever ways, to having the rehab people or the ones Missy was working with that had been victims of sexual abuse and all that crowd. I mean, we'd have that whole crowd like on Christmas Eve, and we tell them to bring in their partner or whatever. And I mean, we did that for years, and you're thinking, good luck, everything still being here after this is over. I mean, you couldn't have it. These people were rough. But I thought, and it was Missy's idea originally. It's a clever way to share Jesus and to share love and things that you have with people that would never think that you would have them in their home and say, let's celebrate, Jesus together. So even when Mia had her one of her surgeries or whatever, one time we had all the people she had met and her doctors, and we invited them and they filmed it,
Right.
It was a clever way to share Jesus to her medical team, and they all came, and they brought the other kids. So that was the struggles, and those were the.
So did you have all this written down when you were telling this to Missy, or was this just coming off
during
the top
the
of
argument? It's went
I'm
on
just wondering how
for
this
2 hours. I would just write something down, if good or bad. I just took the good and the bad, and I wrote them down. These are all the things that came up last night in
I
that
have
2
never
hours.
Have you ever
taken
taken notes
notes.
during an argument, Phyllis?
No.
I took notes. Well, she
Never.
said, why do you keep writing this down? I was like, because I'm going to talk about this in the podcast. And she said, if you talk about this on the podcast, don't come home.
Oh,
But then
ouch.
she laughed. So she's like, thanks for burying our innermost struggles and secrets.
Well, we're gonna. I think we told the audience is we're gonna have Missy and Lisa on one of the podcasts after the first of the year, so we're gonna get her response.
Well, listen to this. She said, well, you should invite me. If you're going to read those things, you should invite me. I said, you're welcome to come. And she said, I'll sing a Christmas song. I said, well, come on. But then we had something. She had something come up. One of her friends lost someone close.
We
so
do need to have
she's
her
gonna-
sing a song when she comes on. That's a good idea.
I think she would.
Well,
Maybe
after-
something
after
from The
hearing
Sound
that-
of Music.
After hearing that speech, Al, reminds me of, I have a phrase I used. I never read it anywhere. The phrase is, the rarest of commodities while you're on planet Earth is peace of mind. You
True.
know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
And after hearing Jace expound on the issues that he's gone through laboriously,
no, I said,
always
I
looking
said
tongue-in-cheek.
playfully.
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 None of this.
So this is tongue in cheek. This
it
is not.
is. It's all tongue in cheek. Now,
But you're right, and a lot of people we could have. I mean, people listening, they would have 100 more things
all right.
from family. You know what I'm saying? That comes about as a result of.
We had this argument about that. What is it called? Gander? I forgot what
Garland.
Garland being over the
Brush.
brush,
being over the
Christmas brush.
We have that argument every year. I mean, the first couple of years I did because I was immature and stupid. I'm like, it means something to her. So guess what? Does it really matter that I see this score? So I play along and throw her a jab or two. She throws me a jab or two. But she wins. She gets to have the thing covering up the game. And in all seriousness, surely that, so what? So, I mean, it's, to me, if to keep the big stuff, Jesus, people, love, to keep that the focus, all this gets blurry. But, I did go through 4 hours of The Sound of Music last night. I mean, I'm just saying, that happened.
That's Christmas suffering. Now, let's take one last break.
You're a better man than me, that's for sure.
So the last thing I was going to say before Al gives us some credibility is I shared with them for the first time. I shared with humans what I think we should change. I had a world-changing announcement last night because they kept poking the bear, and I just come out throwing haymakers at the end because it was like 4-on-1. But I said, look, here's what I don't get. and this kind of came from Karina and the Nicaragua celebrating the 24th, but it was gave me the platform to share my idea. I said, we got this all wrong. On New Year's Eve, everybody stays up till midnight. We should have that tradition for Christmas. And here's why. First of all, it's hard to coordinate the time anyway. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yep.
Right. So everybody's like, oh, it's the year of the New Year. No, well, it didn't happen in Nicaragua. In Russia, they're like, that happened yesterday.
It's like when you're watching the thing come down in New York, it's 11 o'clock here,
Yeah. So I think we should all stay up on Christmas Eve, and at midnight, everybody, that's when the celebration, because Christ is born, and since he cannot be harnessed into time, because it says he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So I think we should count down then. And here's why. On New Year's Eve, you're starting a new year. Well, you're starting off tired. I mean, you should get a good night's rest. No wonder your resolutions didn't work. You made it after you had a few adult beverages in the middle of the night, and you just started off with a train
but then
wreck.
you're going to be tired on Christmas Day with your logic. It's going to be the same
So
thing.
I think it should be changed. I think you should do the countdown on Christmas Eve, going into Christmas Day at the because it's a way bigger thing.
Countdown to Jesus.
To me, yeah.
I agree with that.
The time
like
thing they actually agreed with me.
Yeah.
But then when I was like, look, it begins now. We're changing the world now. And she said, oh, babe, come on.
So if you do away with New Year's Eve, do you have a replacement, or
No,
you say it just completely goes away?
It's just New Year's Day.
So no more New Year's Eve.
You go home and you get ready. Get your little plan for your New Year's resolution. Then get some sleep. You go to bed early. Now, I am saying this because it is in duck season. And do you know that I've never, I say never, maybe prior to 8 years of age, I've never seen a new year in. I'm asleep because it's always in duck season.
Probably Christmas the same way.
Well, but I would stay up for the birth of Jesus.
Well, in the
See
old
what I
days-
mean? If
in
that
old
was
days,
the tradition.
you stayed up and put the stuff together. That was always the late night stuff.
Granted, this is from a duck hunter's perspective. I'm not staying up to midnight. Do you stay up at midnight on New Year's Eve?
Not when it has anything to do with birthdays.
No, New Year's Eve.
Yeah, New Year's Eve. It's another year, which is like a
birth of a new year. That's
happy
right.
birthday, and I'm like, it's not that much happy because I got another year under my belt, and they say I've got 77 average years to live. So when you hit 74, 75, I'm 4 away. I don't count it down.
Dad sees 77 as a hard out. That's what
But would
That
you?
is correct.
But would you do it?
Isn't it great you're 1 year older? I said, tell my back about that.
But if we made Christmas Jesus Day and we counted it down to the minute that it hit, and we said we're going to do a service or whatever, you would do it then. I would do it.
Do you know what's ironic about that, Jace? There's a lot of churches, a lot of different groups that, because we don't really know exactly what time of year, when was Jesus actually born,
That's right.
that they won't even talk about Christmas.
Well,
I mean, like they
where
take
do
it the other extreme. They're like, well, we're not going to talk about that because we don't know. So they go out of their way
Well, they take it back
to not talk about the birth of Jesus, which I've always found just stupid.
They take out of context where's that verse they get that from? Colossians, maybe.
It's the same attitude of not saying Merry Christmas, even if you're not a believer. It's a joyous time. It's a time,
and it's a
for
traditional
families. It's
saying.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Enjoy it and just be merry and
Right.
happy with other human beings, even if you don't agree.
And I'm one that's
With
not.
I've never researched it, but I wonder when they started making it because it's a worldwide thing.
Yeah.
So
And they may have
if the world is changing anything because of an event that they read about,
Right.
some believe it, some don't, think it's a fairy tale. But it looked like to me if the world was impacted that much, it has something to say about the person who pulled this off.
Well, what's fascinating about the Christmas story, that it's in Matthew 1 and 2 and Luke 1 and 2, and you get two different perspectives, is that God in his infinite wisdom decided that, I mean, because he could have just shown up as a full-grown Jesus
That's right.
at 30 years old and do his ministry, and
That's
was here.
right.
But he wanted to go through the whole thing.
Yeah.
The baby,
I mean,
the
that's
little
incredible.
kid. I mean, it's incredible. And we've talked about the story where he's 12 years old at the temple, because you don't get a lot of early Jesus stuff. But I mean, that's amazing, because he's obeyed his parents. He's God. And he's like, okay, well, I'm sorry, And it's like, I mean, he was a 12-year-old kid, even though he was more, because he had all this wisdom and all. That's what fascinates me about the story, is that he was born. Of course, in the Matthew account, Herod, they called him Herod the Great, he was trying to kill him. And so he
was trying to kill all babies.
Then he killed a bunch of babies, which, again, this infanticide has been around forever, because he didn't want to be threatened, because he got the word from the Magi that it was the king of the Jews, or the king of Israel. So he took that as the threat, but he didn't understand the nature of Jesus as a king, which we talked about that at his death. Pilate missed all that too.
Yeah. So God was working, but I mean, Jesus' day is anytime you can bring focus to that. I think the thinking is there's a couple of references where it says you don't acknowledge special days or worship, but they're missing the point completely.
Right.
I mean, we're not saying the day is let's just have a day where the world considers, even if they don't believe, that Jesus, Son of God, was born. What are you, crazy?
Yeah.
You're not for that?
Well,
I mean, who knows what the day is? I don't think there's anybody that no, it was December the 25th. Well, in Russia, that's December 24th. That's what I brought up the thing about
right.
Karina. She didn't know it was December 25th. So it's not about the day. To me, these are people that are missed the forest for the trees.
Right. Well, I like it that there's days that every year that the world even, and for sure believers, recognize his birth, his death, his resurrection, and even in some sense his ascension as part of that Passion Weekend. So, I mean, we should celebrate that for sure. I mean, we celebrate it all the time, but I mean, for sure there should be a notice of such life-changing, world-changing events as that. I mean, this was incredible when he came, and all the stuff surrounding it with the, all the traditional stuff, and you see all the nativities in front of churches or in front of people's homes, and I think that's awesome. I think the idea, just like we celebrate the birth of our children, we still remember. I mean, I'm having birthday parties with grandkids now. I mean, we all get together. We celebrate that. We should certainly celebrate when God decided to come down here.
And you're honoring that person.
Right.
It's their special day, and they're special, and you're wanting to show them that. So
I think it's a struggle, and I think we have to say this. Some Christmas holidays are rough for some people.
Yep.
They've lost loved ones, and especially with all that's been going on this year. But look for an opportunity. Those of us who are still alive, I'm telling you, Jesus in your heart is the foundation for new beginnings and a reason not to quit.
That's right.
So as painful and as trouble as it's been, I mean, I've been blessed that, my wife and I, even though we disagree on everything in life except Jesus, I've said many times, it's enough, because we can play about this other stuff. And even last night, for a second, I was like, are you really mad? She was like, no. But
It got
it's
far
coming
enough,
on pretty strong.
It got far enough that you asked the question.
I did ask the question. I was like, are you really mad? She was like, no.
Well, one good thing about putting Christmas in a spiritual context, not just gifts and Santa and all that stuff, is that when a person like the mayor of L.A., who basically canceled Christmas for L.A., is you can say, you know what, you can't cancel giving homage to Christ and families being able to celebrate that. So it's not cancelable, and so that's what we celebrate with this. So I thought it interesting, Jase, to get inside the
I'm probably in so much trouble now.
it's Christmas, Jase.
It's the Christmas
I
spirit.
thought y'all would like that I jotted these things down. I'm shocked that y'all haven't heard half of what I've said.
I'm fascinated that you took notes during
If
a
I had to-
playful argument with your wife.
It was 2 hours. I mean, it was playful, but it was playfully long.
Can you imagine? Just like, hold on, Tony. I want to write this one down.
It was half the length of the Sound of
I mean,
Music.
look at the notes. Look how, because I would draw a line and say, okay, no, that we backed off that one.
All right, so Merry Christmas, Unashamed Nation. We'll talk more about New Year's next time. Thanks for listening to the Unashamed podcast. Help us out by rating us on iTunes. And don't miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube, and be sure to click that little bell to get notified about new episodes. And for even more content that you won't get anywhere else, subscribe to Blaze TV at blazetv.com/unashamed.